Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to show you how to create this little hand sanitizer pouch. Now this is not my idea and it's not my pattern. It popped up on YouTube and I went to investigate. I will leave the information where I got this from in the description directly underneath the video. There is a PDF instruction that goes with it, so you can download it and print it and follow along. But I thought it's quite a simple project. I'd show you how to make it today. So the supplies that you're going to need are 4 pieces of outer fabric which measure 3.5 inches wide by 4 inches high. And one of those pieces of fabric you need to press, because this is going to be the hanging loop here. So on the 3.5 inch side, I've folded it in half, pressed it, opened it out, folded the outside edges into the middle and pressed, and then folded again and pressed. So that gives you the hanging loop for when you come to need to sew that. And then you've got 3 other pieces that are the same size for the outer. For the inside of the holder, you need a piece that's 3.5 inches by 4, and you need a piece that's 3.5 inches by 7.5. Now I've cut all these using the new fabric mat and fabric blade with the ScanNCut, but they're easy enough to cut with a rotary cutter and a ruler, or even just use a ruler and draw it and cut them out with a pair of scissors. You also need some kind of hanging loop. Now on this particular one, I used like a lobster claw clasp. But for the next one, I'm going to use one of these. They call them a jump ring or a book ring. And basically they snap together. They've got teeth on them. And to open them, you push them in opposite directions and then slide. So I'm not sure how well you're going to see that, but that's what I'm going to use. And they're quite secure, they're quite stiff, and they click into place. So I'm just going to swap over to the machine and show you how to put this together. Oh, and you can, to fasten it, I forgot to say, you can either use a snap, or you could put some Velcro on here, or you could just leave it completely loose, because when it's hung, you know, wherever you're hanging it on a bag or that kind of thing, it's not going to fall out because the weight of the bottle inside it holds it down. But it just looks a little bit better if you do fasten it. You could leave the hanging loop off altogether and just keep this in your handbag. It does, you know, it's entirely up to you. The size of the bottle that I've got in here is a 50 millilitre hand sanitizer bottle. This is just a Bayliss and Harding one that I picked up in the supermarket. I think these are about just under 2 ounces or something like that. And it's roomy, so you could probably get something bigger. I mean, if I squash it up to the side, there's quite a bit of room in there. It does, you know, move around, although it won't move around here because the neck area is angled to accommodate the lid of your sanitizer. So the first thing I'm going to do is just sew a line of stitching down the edge of this piece that I'm making for the hanging loop, and I'm going to sew another line of stitching down the other long edge as well. And that's just, this one's going to close up the opening and this one's just going to be purely decorative. So I'm just going to trim the threads, and I'm just going to bring in my little book ring and push that through my book ring and fold that in half. I'm just going to put a clip on it just to hold it together just for a few minutes. So the next thing you want to do is bring in 2 more pieces of your outer fabric, and you're going to sew these together, but you're going to sew the loop in the middle. So the way I would do this is fold it in half and just give it a quick finger press so you know where the middle is. Then get your loop and get for the middle of the loop, line that up with the crease you've just made, and just clip it just to hold it in place. Your loop needs to be facing inwards, and then get your other piece of outer fabric and put that on top, right sides together. And this is on the 3.5 inch side, because remember this is 3.5 by 4, so the sizes are, you know, pretty close. So you just want to line those two up together, and then when you know you've got them together, just take that clip out and re-clip it, and then put it back under your sewing machine, and you're going to sew straight along. So I'm going to set off sewing. I'm going to do a little bit of a back stitch and come along, and then just take it slowly when I come up over where this hanging piece is. I'm just going to take the clip out and then carry on sewing and do a back stitch when I get to the end. So then when you open it out, this is how it's looking now. I'm just going to finger press this and then I'm just going to top stitch it. So I'm just moving the needle over on my machine, and then I'm going to start sewing. You don't need to back stitch this bit, this is just decorative. Okay, so that's what you've got now. And I'm going to bring in the last remaining piece of my outside fabric and my piece of lining, which is the same size. And I'm going to put these two right sides together. And these are going to be sewn on both of the short ends. So straight down here and straight down here, just sewing them together. Okay, so that's what you've got now. So I'm going to turn this right side out, and then you need to press this. So just make sure you've got your seams all nicely folded out and just give it a quick press. So now you're just going to top stitch one end. You can top stitch both, it doesn't really matter, but the information says top stitch one end. So I'm going to put this back under the machine. I'm just going to top stitch this one end on the side that I've just sewn. So that's how it's looking now, and that's going to just be put on one side. I'm going to bring back in the outer piece, and then you've got one last piece which is 3.5 by 7.5. I'm going to put this right sides together. I'm just going to put this back in the machine with the hanging loop facing upwards, and I'm going to sew along this short edge. Okay, so that's how it's looking now. So when you open it up, you've got your two pieces joined together on the short end, and this is the outer fabric with the loop facing up. Okay, so I've got this right side up, facing out, I've got the hanging loop pointing up, I'm going to bring in the piece that I sewed together and top stitched, and then you've got the two open edges here, and this is now going to sit on top of your lining piece, but you need to leave a tiny little gap here. You're not lining it up directly with this seam, it's going to come just ever so slightly down. And then when you look at it as a continual piece, this is the piece that's got the hanging loop in it, and then you can see the same pattern on this piece, and these are open edges on either side. Okay, now you may want to pin or clip it. I'm just going to put a couple of clips just in either side just for a minute, and then what you're going to do now is flip this over so that it all lines up, and then I'm going to take the clip out and pin it and clip it all together now with the other layer. So I've just flipped the lining over, so these two are now right sides together, and that piece is in the middle just held in place. So what you want to do now is mark at this bottom end where this fold is that you've sewn to make the neck for the bottle. Now, you know, you could use a piece of chalk, an air or water erasable pen, whatever you want. I'm just going to use a normal pen for this. It's on the lining, it's not going to be seen. And I'm going to measure up 3/4 of an inch from the sewn seam, not from the bottom of the fabric, but from the sewn seam. And I'm just going to put a little mark. And then I'm going to come in from the side 3/4 of an inch and put a little mark. I'll show you in a minute. And then I'm going to do the same on the opposite side. So I'm going to come in 3/4 of an inch along that sewn edge and just put a mark, and then from the sewn seam up 3/4 of an inch and put a mark. So that's how it's looking. You've got a mark there and there and there and there, and basically where this mark is on the seam, you're going to draw a diagonal line. So you've got these two funny lines now. So basically what you're going to do, you're going to put this into your machine, and you're going to start sewing with your regular seam allowance. When you get down to where this line is, you're going to come down on an angle and then just sew off. And then you're going to do exactly the same on the other side. You're going to come down, get to this point, and then come down on an angle. But what you want to do is leave an opening somewhere so that you can turn it through. And the best place to leave the opening is on the sides where you've not got this extra piece of fabric, because that's going to be the pocket effectively that holds your sanitizer. So you're best leaving your seam allowance in one of these sides here somewhere. So I'm just going to put a couple of little marks with a pen to remind me not to sew between those points. I'm going to start sewing. I think I'm going to come on from the seam. So I'm going to come on here, come along to this line, and then come down here. Stop, back stitch, move over here, come down, go across, go all the way along and back. Okay, so this is how it's looking now. So now I'm going to find where I left the opening, and I'm going to go into this top far corner, and I'm going to pull it back through and pull the whole thing right side out through this opening. Just take your time. You've got a few layers to come through a tiny little hole, but it will all come through. Once you get the hanging loop through, it's pretty easy, because that's where the bulk of your fabric is. Just going to bring in my old embossing stylus. And poke out all the fabric all the way round. So this is how it's looking now. So if you pull where the opening is, if you put your fingers into the opening and pull, not too tight, the folds will fold in and you can press that. And then I'm going to flip the pocket the right way out now, straighten out all my seams, and then give it another good press. So that now when you fold this over, you've got your hanging loop and you've got your pocket and you've got your place to slide in your sanitizer, and that will come over. And I like this one better with the edges left straight, and then you could put a Velcro or a snap or something on it. I've got some snaps. I've just I've put them away from when I made this last one, and I've been reorganizing my room again and I can't find them, so I'll put a snap on it and I'll show you at the end. So basically what you need to do now is where you've left this open seam, you need to top stitch around here now, and then it will be complete. And then, as I said, that will slide in and this will fold over. You can put a snap on it or however you want to fasten it. So I hope you liked the video. Please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next